You tell yourself you hate people, that you're just not a social person, that crowds drain you, conversations exhaust you, that you'd rather be alone than deal with the noise and the effort and the endless performance of being around others. But here's what almost no one tells you. You don't actually hate people. You hate the version of yourself you have to become around them. There's a difference, a profound one, between disliking human connection and disliking the mask you're forced to wear to access it. For years, maybe decades, you've been walking into rooms and putting on a costume, smiling when you don't feel like smiling, laughing at jokes that aren't funny, pretending to care about conversations that feel like they're happening on the surface of a lake while your mind is somewhere deep underwater. And every time you do it, something inside you tightens. Not because you're broken, not because you're antisocial or cold or incapable of love, but because you're spending hours, days, years being someone you're not. The exhaustion you feel after social events isn't just about the noise or the people. It's about the energy it takes to perform a version of yourself that fits into spaces that were never designed for someone like you. It's about the split, the gap between who you are when you're alone, thoughtful, deep, quiet, clear, and who you have to be out there. Lighter, faster, smaller, simpler. And that gap, that's where the drain happens. Not from the conversation itself, not from the presence of other humans, but from the constant, exhausting work of translation, taking everything you actually think and feel and filtering it through a version of yourself that won't make people uncomfortable. Think about it. When you're alone, your thoughts move at their own pace. They spiral, they deepen, they connect ideas across time and memory and meaning. You can sit with a feeling for 20 minutes without needing to explain it or justify it or turn it into something digestible for someone else. You can be quiet without it being awkward. You can be serious without being too much. You can exist in your full complexity without having to apologize for it. But the moment you step into most social spaces, all of that has to stop. Suddenly, you're expected to be quick, light, easy, entertaining. You're expected to keep up with conversations that move fast and stay shallow, where depth is treated like a mood killer and silence is something to be feared. And so you adjust, you speed up your thoughts, you simplify your sentences, you laugh a little louder, you perform interest in things that bore you. You become a condensed, flattened, socially acceptable version of who you actually are. And it works. People think you're fine, normal, maybe even pleasant, but inside, you're dying a little. Jung called this the persona, the social mask we wear to navigate the world. He said the persona isn't inherently bad, it's necessary. It helps us function in society, meet expectations, avoid conflict. But Jung also warned, when you live too long inside the persona, when you forget it's just a mask and start believing it's who you actually are, you lose contact with your true self. And for people like you, the cost is even higher. Because your true self is so different from what the world expects, the persona you wear isn't just a polite adjustment, it's a full disguise. You're not just smoothing rough edges, you're hiding entire dimensions of who you are. Your depth, your sensitivity, your need for silence and meaning and space to think. All of it gets tucked away, compressed, hidden, because most social spaces don't have room for it. And here's the cruelest part. You've been doing this for so long, you might not even notice it anymore. The mask has become so automatic, so practiced, that putting it on feels like second nature. You walk into the office, and without even thinking, you become work you. Pleasant, efficient, just engaged enough to seem normal, but not so engaged that anyone asks you to go deeper. You show up at family gatherings, and you become family you, smiling, nodding, asking the right questions, playing the role everyone expects without ever letting them see what's actually happening inside. You meet friends for coffee, and you become social you, lighter, funnier, more surface level than you'd ever be alone, because you've learned that's what keeps things comfortable. And none of these versions are entirely fake. They're all parts of you, real parts. But they're not the whole. They're fragments, edited versions, performances designed to fit into spaces that can't hold all of who you are. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Claire. Claire spent most of her adult life believing she hated socializing. She dreaded work events. She avoided parties. She felt guilty every time she turned down an invitation. But the thought of going made her chest tighten. Her friends told her she was too serious. Her family said she needed to loosen up. She started to believe maybe they were right, that something about her was just off. But then one night, she had dinner with an old college friend she hadn't seen in years, and something strange happened. They talked for 4 hours about grief, about fear, about what it felt like to watch your parents age, about the quiet terror of realizing you might never feel like you figured life out. Claire didn't perform once. She didn't smile to fill silence. She didn't soften her thoughts. She didn't pretend to be lighter than she was. She let herself be slow, serious, uncertain. She let herself think out loud, pause mid-sentence, sit with uncomfortable truths without rushing to resolve them. And when she got home that night, she wasn't drained. She felt alive. That's when she realized she didn't hate people. She hated the script. She hated the shallow rhythm of most social interactions, the small talk, the performance, the unspoken rule that you're supposed to be pleasant and easy and never too much. She hated that most conversations felt like they were designed to avoid anything real. And she hated that in those spaces, she had to become someone smaller, simpler, less herself, just to fit in. But with this one friend, someone who didn't need her to perform, who let her be exactly as deep and slow and serious as she actually was, there was no drain, because there was no mask. She was just herself. And that didn't cost her anything. Here's what makes this so painful for people like you. You're not wired for surface-level connection. Your mind goes deep naturally. You think in layers. You feel in layers. You process the world with a kind of emotional and intellectual complexity that most people don't even notice is there. So when you walk into a room where the conversation stays light, stays safe, stays shallow, you're not just bored, you're suffocating, because you're being asked to operate in a mode that doesn't match how your brain actually works. It's like being a pianist forced to play with mittens on. You can do it, you can get through it, but every note feels muffled, clumsy, wrong. And the longer you play that way, the more exhausted you become. Not because playing music is hard, but because playing it badly, playing it in a way that hides your actual skill, is soul-crushing, and worse. You're being asked to hide the parts of you that are most alive. Your depth, your sensitivity, your need for meaning. Those aren't flaws. They're not weaknesses. But in most social spaces, they're treated like they are. People get uncomfortable when you go too deep. They change the subject when things get too real. They make jokes to lighten the mood, as if seriousness is something to be afraid of. So you learn to tuck those parts away, to be a little less intense, a little less serious, a little less you. And every time you do that, it costs you something. Not just energy, not just time, but a piece of your sense of self. Because every time you hide who you are to make others comfortable, you're sending yourself a message. The real you isn't acceptable here. Rilke wrote, "The only journey is the one within." He believed that most people spend their lives running from their own depths, filling their time with noise and distraction and shallow connection, because sitting with themselves feels too heavy, too vast, too real. But you're the opposite. You've already made that inward journey. You've already spent time in your own depths. You've sat with your fears, your questions, your contradictions. You've learned to be alone with your own mind, and not just tolerate it, but find richness there. And now, when the world asks you to come back to the surface and pretend that's where life happens, it feels like betrayal. Not of other people, of yourself. Because you know what's possible in the depths. You know what real conversation feels like, what real presence feels like. And once you've tasted that, everything else feels like a waste of time. This is why certain people don't drain you at all. It's not about introversion or extroversion. It's not about how many people are in the room. It's about whether you can be yourself in that room. When you're with someone who lets you speak slowly, think out loud, go quiet when you need to, you don't get tired. When you're with someone who asks real questions and listens to real answers, who doesn't need you to perform or entertain or fill every silence, you feel energized. Because you're not wearing the mask, you're not translating, you're not performing, you're not hiding, you're just there. Fully present, fully yourself, and that doesn't drain you, it fills you. But those people are rare, and most of the time, you're surrounded by interactions that require the performance. The work meeting, where you have to seem enthusiastic about things you don't care about. The family gathering where you're expected to be upbeat and social and normal. The casual hangout where everyone's talking fast and light and you're supposed to keep up, even though your mind is moving in a completely different direction. And in all of those spaces, you're split. Part of you is there, performing, nodding, smiling, playing the role. Part of you is somewhere else entirely, waiting to go home, counting the minutes until you can take the mask off and finally breathe again. And the worst part? You start to believe the problem is you. You start to think, maybe I'm just not good at this. Maybe I'm broken. Maybe everyone else finds this easy and I'm the only one struggling. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is this. You're trying to force yourself into a shape that doesn't fit. You're trying to be someone you're not, in spaces that don't nourish you, and then blaming yourself for feeling drained. But the drain isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that you're trying to live in a way that's fundamentally misaligned with who you actually are. Here's the part most people completely misunderstand about you. They think you're cold, distant, uninterested in connection. But the truth is the opposite. You care so much about connection that you can't bear to fake it. You'd rather be alone than pretend. You'd rather have silence than shallow noise. You'd rather have one real conversation a year than 100 surface-level exchanges. And that's not hatred of people. That's integrity. That's you refusing to betray yourself just to make others comfortable. That's you protecting something precious, your capacity for depth, for truth, for real presence, even when the world keeps asking you to trade it for something easier and emptier. The Stoics understood this. Seneca wrote about the exhaustion of living according to other people's expectations, how it empties you, how it makes you a stranger to yourself. He said, "We are not given a short life, but we make it short by wasting it on things that don't matter." And for you, performing a false version of yourself in spaces that don't nourish you, that's the waste. Not because those people are bad, not because social connection is wrong, but because that kind of connection, the kind that requires you to hide, doesn't feed you. It drains you. And life is too short to spend it pretending. So let's make some distinctions, because this matters. Because if you keep confusing hating people with hating performance, you'll keep trying to fix the wrong problem. Hating people versus hating performance. Hating people means you don't want connection at all. You avoid it out of contempt or fear or genuine disinterest. Hating performance means you want real connection, and you're exhausted by everything else. You don't hate humans. You hate the shallow scripts, the empty rituals, the constant need to be on. You hate that most social spaces feel like theatre, where everyone's playing a role and no one's actually present. Being antisocial versus being selective. Being antisocial means you avoid people out of fear or contempt. You shut down, you isolate, you reject connection entirely. Being selective means you protect your energy because you know what nourishes you and what doesn't. You're not avoiding people, you're avoiding the wrong people, the wrong environments, the wrong kinds of interaction. And that's not coldness, that's wisdom. Isolation versus solitude. Isolation is hiding from the world because you're afraid of it. It's running away. It's shutting down out of fear or shame or hopelessness. Solitude is choosing your own company because it's where you feel most like yourself and most able to show up authentically when the right person or moment appears. Isolation depletes you. Solitude restores you. And the difference between the two isn't about how much time you spend alone. It's about whether that time is nourishing or numbing. You're not broken for preferring depth. You're not cold for refusing to fake warmth. You're not difficult for needing more than surface-level scripts. You're not antisocial for protecting your energy. You're not a failure for choosing solitude over shallow connection. What you are is someone who's been trying to live in a world that rewards performance over presence. A world that treats depth like a liability and speed like a virtue. A world that asks you to be lighter, faster, easier, simpler, and punishes you when you can't. And you're tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of code switching. Tired of walking into rooms and becoming someone smaller just to make others comfortable. And that tiredness, it's not weakness. It's your soul telling you this isn't sustainable. Here's what starts to shift when you stop blaming yourself. You stop forcing yourself into spaces that require the mask. You stop saying yes to invitations out of guilt or obligation, or the fear that if you don't, you'll end up completely alone. You start building a life where you can be more of yourself, more of the time. Not all the time, not in every space, but more. You become more selective, not out of fear, but out of respect for your own energy and your own truth. You start looking for the people who don't make you perform, the ones who let you be quiet, the ones who ask questions that go beneath the surface, the ones who don't need you to be entertaining or easy or always on, the ones who can sit with you in silence and not feel the need to fill it, the ones who see your depth and don't ask you to hide it. And you stop apologizing for the fact that those people are rare. Because rare doesn't mean impossible. It just means you have to be patient, intentional, willing to wait for what's real instead of settling for what's easy. This doesn't mean you become a hermit. It doesn't mean you reject all social connection. It means you stop pretending that all connection is equal. Some conversations fill you, others empty you. Some people see you, others only see the mask. And you're allowed to choose accordingly. You might start saying no more often. Not because you hate people, but because you've learned that protecting your energy is how you stay capable of real connection when it matters. You might start spending more time alone. Not because you're running away, but because solitude is where you return to yourself, where you remember who you are beneath all the performance. You might start seeking out one or two people who feel safe. People you don't have to explain yourself to. People who don't need you to be lighter or easier or more fun. People who let you exist as you are. And when you find them, you hold on. Not desperately, not out of fear, but with gratitude, with care, with the quiet knowledge that this is what connection is supposed to feel like. And over time, something unexpected happens. You stop feeling guilty for being this way. You stop wondering if you're broken. You stop comparing yourself to people who seem to thrive in crowds, who seem energized by constant social contact, who seem to need very little solitude to feel whole. You start to see that the version of you that emerges in solitude, the one who thinks deeply, feels deeply, sees the world with clarity and care, that version isn't the problem. The problem was ever believing you had to hide it. Jung said the goal of life is individuation. Becoming who you truly are, beneath all the masks. Not who your family wants you to be, not who society expects, not who you think you should be, but who you actually are. And for you, that process doesn't happen in crowded rooms or loud conversations. It happens in the quiet, in the spaces where you don't have to perform, in the moments where you're finally alone enough to hear your own voice again. In the rare, precious encounters with people who don't need you to be anyone other than exactly who you are. So no, you don't hate people. You hate the exhausting, soul-draining work of being someone you're not just to exist among them. And the moment you stop confusing those two things, everything changes. You stop trying to fix yourself. You start building a life that fits who you actually are. You stop chasing connection that costs you your peace. You start protecting the space where you can finally breathe. And maybe, just maybe, you find one or two people who don't require the mask at all. People who meet you in the depths instead of asking you to stay on the surface. People who don't drain you, because with them, you're not performing. You're just present. That's not loneliness. That's not isolation. That's freedom. The freedom to be yourself, to choose your company carefully, to build a life that doesn't require you to hide. And that freedom, it's not something you have to earn or justify or apologize for. It's something you've always deserved. And if you've ever wondered how to build a life where you don't have to wear the mask so often, where you can be more of yourself, more of the time, without feeling like you're failing at being human, that's a different kind of story, one that unfolds in the next quiet conversation. Alone Together, a quiet corner of the internet for people who choose solitude over half-hearted connections.